thanks for joining us again today. I'd like to introduce you to Heather Whyte. She's one of our instructors here at Sweetwise, and today she's going to show you some great things to do with tips.
Hi there, I'm here today to talk to you about some piping techniques using round tips. Round tips come in a variety of sizes, all the way from 00 being really, really small to the largest being a 1A, which is absolutely huge. So we'll go over some techniques, and you can incorporate the different sizes just based on kind of what you're working on, and we'll go from there. Okay, so I'm going to start here with a tip number 12, and I'm just going to show you sort of a snail trail type of border. It's going to be exactly the same as a shell border if you have experience with shells. I'm going to start with my bag at an angle of either 45 or maybe a little bit higher up. I'm really close to the board here, and I'm just going to start out with a squeeze, and I'm never going to move my right hand. I'm going to let the icing billow out to the side. And then when I'm ready, I'm going to come straight down to the right and keep my squeeze going until I reach that board. And then I'm going to let go of my squeeze but keep the pull going and the tip down, and that's going to give me a nice little tapered effect. So when you're ready to match these up, I would say leave maybe 1/4 of an inch of room between the tail of the last snail trail piece and the next one. So we'll come over just a little bit here and we'll do exactly the same thing. Just a squeeze, squeeze, squeeze. It's going to get big and billow, and when you're happy with the size, you'll start moving straight down to the right. When you reach that board, you're going to let off the squeeze and keep the pull going so that you get a little tail at the end. So that's going to be how you're going to get this sort of snail trail effect. Okay, so moving on from there, if you want to make these look a little more like pearls, more like a pearl border, there's just a slight difference in how we're going to do this. So I'm going to come down here again to the same angle. And this time, I'm going to start off by squeezing, and when I'm ready to move on, I'm going to let go of the pressure and pull to the right. So you'll see it's just a squeeze and then a quick pull and release. Then another squeeze, a quick pull and release. Squeeze, quick pull and release. So there's not really any downward motion this time. It's all just letting the icing billow up into a nice little circle. So you get more of a pearlized look that way. Now, one other thing we can do with this round tip, we can make sort of polka dots. So what you'll do, commonly what people do is they come into this 90-degree angle and they start off by squeezing out, but then they want to pull up and they get this kind of peak happening on their circle, which once the icing dries you can tap that down. But an easier way to do this is if you come in close to the board and again squeeze and kind of let it build out, you can sort of give a little spinning motion as you release, and you're going to get a flatter looking dot. So that's a great way to keep them looking like polka dots, and even if you do get a little peak, again once it dries you can sort of tap that down. Okay, so now I've switched to a tip number 4 here. I'm going to talk to you about some string work, and a lot of times when you see string work, they use really, really small tips, but I'm going to use a number 4 today. I would probably normally go anywhere from a 0 to a 3 when I'm doing string work, but so that you can see this a little better, I'm using a number 4 here, and I'm going to come in on this dummy and just talk to you about how to pipe string work. One of the biggest things when you're doing string work is to realize that anytime you're making a line, the pressure that you're giving the bag has to match the speed at which you're moving. So if you're moving really quickly and you're not giving the bag enough pressure, your line is going to break. The consistency of your icing is also going to be important, that it has a nice elasticity to it and isn't too dry and also isn't too runny. So a nice icing is going to help. So when you start off, you really just want to find your point here and just kind of tap down, and as you move across, you want to move in a straight line rather than following the line down. Let it do the dropping for you, and then you can sort of just touch down at the next point. Another thing that's really helpful when doing string work is they make Garland markers that actually show you the proper spacing on your cake as well as where to drop the line to. So if you ever want to invest in those, it's a great tool as well. So I'll come in here again. I'm going to touch down, and you'll see I move in a straight line across, pull out a little bit away from the cake to let it drop, and then I'm just going to touch down. Okay, so once you've kind of got some nice string work going, here are some ways you can sort of jazz it up a little bit. Is now I've got this nice motion, so I can come sort of in between my drop strings here and pull over and across and get this nice section that goes in between. And then I could even come back to these ones I've already piped and sort of double them up and just not drop the string as far. So I'll come over here, let's do another one, and then just touch down. So now I've got this nice pretty little effect of the overlapping string. So that's another technique you can use. Okay, so now I want to talk to you about how to write on cakes. You know, when you're writing on cakes, I would say that using a tip maybe from the sizes of 2 to 5 work best, because you're really not ever going to have a need to write with something as small as a 00 when you're writing happy birthday or congratulations, and it's going to make it easier on you to work with a tip in that sort of range. So, you know, one thing that'll really help you get in the right sort of frame of mind to start writing is if you bring your bag down to sort of that 45 or 60 degree angle and start really, you know, just a little bit off of the board here. Give the bag a good pressure and practice just making loops. And you can see, just similar to the string work, they're just kind of falling naturally into place. And this is just a good thing that's going to help you with your writing. It's going to help you get a good pressure, and it's going to help you get a good motion and a flow going before you start writing. So the thing about writing is also that everyone's is a little bit different, just like if you're writing with a pencil. So, you know, don't feel like it has to be perfect. And if you're really, you know, a perfectionist like I can be, they also sell great presses that you can press into the icing and then trace over. So one of the biggest things when you are piping words is, just like with the string work, again, you really have to be careful that the pressure you're giving the bag matches the speed at which you're pulling. So what I'm going to start off by doing is I'll kind of touch down here, and let's say I'm going to write happy birthday. And you can see I just am enough off the board to keep that nice fluffiness to the lettering. And you can notice that I'm also not taking, you know, too much time doing this. If you stay too long, sometimes the line wants to curl up, so you have to be kind of careful doing that. So I'm going to come in here, and you can see I just touch down when I need to come off. And you can certainly, you know, do straight lettering as well. I'm doing cursive right here. Okay, so there's happy. And, you know, if you want to do straight lettering, when you're working on straight lines, really just make sure that you keep somewhat of a speed going, because, again, that line will want to curl up on you if you take too much time doing it. Okay, so as a rule of thumb, it's always a good idea to have some practice boards handy and just try out your piping techniques before actually putting them on the cake, because, you know, you might want to play around with size a little bit, and just it's a lot harder to fix things once they're actually on the cake. So you can see I've got a couple of boards laid out here. And also just keep in mind that any of these tips and techniques can be used with any size of the round tips. And thanks for stopping by.